Ladies and gentlemen, this podcast, truly one of the most unusual ever recorded, contains dribble, slang, and frank discussion of subject matter which under no circumstances should be heard by small children, persons with a heart condition, or anyone who is upset easily. If you are such a person, or if you're the parent of a very small child in the room, we urge you to switch off your streaming device now.
Hi, Jen.
Hey, Cam, how are you?
I'm just delightful. How are you?
You've never been delightful.
I am because it's 4 days of school left.
Woo, go you.
It's my birthday.
I've got 1 full day and 2 half days.
And then
kids.
we work the opposite schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So see that my life's going to get great. Yours is not.
It'll be great-ish.
Kids are older. It's fine.
I know. They're good kids.
Yeah.
I love them. My littlest one got me flowers
I
today.
know. She's the sweetest.
I love her.
I got a little story for you.
Yeah, I'm
today.
excited to hear about it. You've been kind of talking about it a little bit.
Little bit.
Little bit.
You ready to go?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yep. I'm ready.
Hey, you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Give it.
Key Biscayne, Florida, June 30th, 1964.
Hmm.
He was rich, he was powerful, and now he's not breathing, which might have something to do with the 39 stab wounds.
Ooh.
Police could count the stab wounds from where they stood as a blanket was wrapped around his lifeless body. The blanket had holes in it, so he
Ooh.
was wrapped in it.
Right.
Right. His head had been bashed in with some sort of object. The man was wearing only a white nightshirt, and as the investigators bent down to take a closer look, they noticed the man had one single strand of hair grasped in his palm.
Huh. Not on his head?
Near his feet is broken glass, which was once a vase.
Walking on broken glass.
On the counter sits 2 highball glasses, one with cigarette butts in it. While dusting for fingerprints, they are able to lift an arm print off the counter. Nothing else was found. Under the bloody blanket lay a man named Jacques Mossler. Mossler was not just any guy. He was the head of a $33 million banking and loan empire. And his death in this very luxurious apartment building would soon turn out to be one of the most sensational media stories of that decade.
Oh, wow.
His grief-stricken wife, Candace, or Candy to those who knew her well, was right there too. Candy told police that she had just returned to the house around 4:30 a.m., found her husband like this, and immediately called police. Candy, who had dealt with serious migraines during her entire life, told authorities that she left the home around 1 a.m. with the children to go to the hospital seeking some treatment for her migraines.
I'm with our sister.
On the way, she stopped to mail a letter and then continued on to the hospital, arriving just after 2 a.m.
You know, I've got to give her kudos. If she's got a migraine and she's taking her kids to the hospital,
in the middle of the night.
that would give me a
When their
migraine
dad's at
too.
home. She had just returned home and then called police. Police show up, they do the investigation with him. So now they start branching out. Police start knocking on the doors. A neighbor named Peggy tells them it was around 2 a.m. that she heard some noises and she came out into the hallway to look around. While out there, she encountered some other neighbors who also heard the racket. They all chatted about it for a second, and then she went back inside and went back to bed. Another neighbor named Herbert lived above Mossler in the luxury condo. He stated that Mossler's dog was on the terrace and was barking nonstop.
So must be a Westie.
Herbert yelled down below, telling them to get the dog to be quiet. When he was outside, he said he heard a male voice say, "Don't do that to me," followed by silence. Another neighbor named Irene lived below Mossler and said she was also awakened by the disturbances. She got up, opened her front door, just a crack, and noticed a man walking down the hallway and around the corner. He then got into a white car and left.
Not a white van, huh?
In the 1960s, Americans flocked to Florida to soak up the sun and the fun, and if you had money, southern Florida was the place to be seen. By day, you'd sip your cocktail on your yacht, and by night, you could dine at all the finest establishments like the Hotel Fontainebleau and dance the night away. Regular patrons who visited were Jacques and Candace Mossler from Houston, Texas. Jacques Mossler had built a great fortune in the automobile and banking industries. He was known to be quite ruthless in his business dealings, had made more than a few enemies. Essentially, if you were late on payments on your car or your business, it now became his. His wife, Candy, was a socialite about town and known for dressing well and throwing lavish parties. She, like many housewives of the time, was not in the know in regards to her husband's business. She concentrated on the home and raising their children, but that's not always how it was with Candy. Candy had married her first husband while she was very young, and they had 2 children, but the marriage was not to be and soon fell apart. Being pretty and using what she had, she opened a modeling finishing school. Just what does one finish at finishing school? Because I think I flunked out and I never finished.
Yeah, you learn grace and manners. So, yeah, you never went to finishing school?
Nope, I never finished finishing school. Candy was busy running her business and raising her 2 small children when at a fundraiser she met an older gentleman by the name of Jacques Mossler.
No, you forgot Candy's a gold digger. That should be on her.
Just wait. Oh, you had no idea.
Gold
Girl.
system.
Mossler, who had just been through a bitter divorce, was a proud father to his children. The couple, of course, soon wed, and then they would share their 10 children between
No
the 2
way.
of them. Candy had 2 children,
He had 8 kids.
and he had 4 children, and then the couple
Oh.
adopted 4 more. Mossler doted on Candy and built her a huge mansion outside of Houston. She had her hands full with the housework and the raising of all those
Oh my God, I couldn't
kids.
imagine.
Her nephew, Melvin Powers, even moved into the large home. Powers is the 22-year-old son of Candy's older sister. The couple lived in happiness for quite a while, close to 10 years, but the age difference was starting to become apparent as Mossler began to deal with some health issues.
Well, he was older, so
Well, yeah,
it happens.
it happens. Mossler went to Europe solo for some treatment, and upon his return, he informed Candy that they needed to be near the ocean more, and it was the ocean air that had changed him. So Miami, here they come. Oh, wait, not them, just him.
Oh, really?
Candy informed police that when Jacques moved to Florida, he changed.
Really?
He made some new friends, some different friends that were of the male persuasion.
Oh, little Jacques got a secret. Got a secret. Can you keep it?
Candy told police that Jacques would often invite strangers who were male over to his place for late night chit chats. She implied that perhaps one of these people must have killed him. When asked if she knew the names of any of these men, she gave them a name. The name was Vincent. He was a much younger man who was an employee of the bank. The 2 of them were living in an apartment above one of the banks. Vincent was not paying any rent, not with any money anyway. When police questioned him, he tells them that he had transferred to Miami and in doing so took a pay cut. He negotiated a fully furnished apartment as part of the deal. He tells him he slept on the pull-out sofa there because Jacques was frugal and this was saving him money.
Oh,
Vincent goes on to state that he was home alone when Jacques was murdered. And while there's nobody that can back up his story, they also had nothing to say that he was in fact involved. Oh, And he added that neither he nor Jacques were actually gay.
Oh, yeah.
As police continued to look into things, they discover that a white Chevy had been repossessed and that Candy had been using the car. Investigators speak to the auto company and they say that they should talk to a man named Roscoe Brown. Brown was sort of a fix-it man for the family. He had worked for Jacques in Miami, and he would often work on cars should they break down after he repossessed them. Roscoe Brown told detectives that the car had been delivered to Candy in Miami about 6 days before the murder of Jacques. Brown goes on to state that when he went to pick up Candy, she was with her daughter, Rita, Rita's fiance, and her nephew, Melvin, as they returned from the Bahamas on a family trip. It was the Chevy in which he used to pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
Police then pull Candy back in as they want a few more answers about this car. Candy states that while she did have the car for a bit, she returned it to the company about 3 days before the homicide. The car company said it never came back. So where is it? Police decide to put out an APB in order to find the car. Not long after that, the car is located at Miami International Airport. Now remember, the self-driving car had not yet been invented, so somebody had to put it there. Police are running into a wall with the investigation, so they go back to the people that are closest to Jacques, which would be family. They venture back to Houston, and they nose around, and it seems that there was a bit of gossip, or rumors, if you will. You know, just like Jen and I, the Southern genteel would never entertain gossip.
Never.
It seems that Candy's nephew, Melvin, had been quite the handful growing up. He had been in and out of trouble, but nothing too terrible. Before he would get himself into a situation in which he couldn't get himself out of, his mother, Candy's sister, asked if Melvin could come and live with them and give them a handout, a job. The couple took the young man in, and Jacques gave him a job with the idea that one day he would take over one or maybe even all of the businesses once Jacques retired. As an aunt, Candy was very close to Melvin, and Jacques treated him just like a son. All was going well, that is, until about a year ago, when police were called to the mansion to check out an out-of-control argument.
Mm-hmm.
It seems Jacques wanted Melvin gone and out of the house. And Melvin, well, if you had it as good as he did, would you want to leave either? No. Melvin refused, so the police were called and dragged out the handsome young man by the arms, kicking and screaming. So just what happened between this adopted son and father? Well, that is where the gossip gets a tad bit more juicy, if not a smidge illegal.
Illegal?
There is a saying, brought together by blood, kept together by love.
Aww.
And it seems Aunt Candy really, really loved her nephew. Like many bored, rich housewives who get anything and everything that they want, tend to want more. You see, their love is not without its condition. It seems for Candy, love wasn't blind at all, and she could see exactly where it needed to be fixed. Melvin, her nephew, would have to do 4 simple things for his Auntie Candy. First, he had to be circumcised.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Secondly, his ears needed to be pinned back. They were a little bit large and stuck out. Next, his face had a few acne scars, so it needed to be smoothed out.
You're kidding me. This is his aunt?
And finally, last but not least, and truly my favorite, his tonsils needed to be removed.
Why?
You know, just in case he snored.
Oh, Jesus Christ. She's something else.
I think we all need a little Aunt Candy in our life because I have some surgeries I'd like to have done. You know, little nip, little duck.
Yeah, but if somebody would tell you, I can't be with you until you have this done.
Even though Candy was trying to improve Melvin, there was one area in which he needed no improvement. In fact, he was actually quite talented with his
bank account,
shall we say, oral skills.
Oh, he was an orator. He could speak real good.
As their affair heated up, it was no time until all the house staff knew, and then a few others.
We call those the cunning linguists.
It became quite the thing to talk about in and around town, and soon it was being whispered all around. And by all around, I mean someone finally whispered it to Jacques himself. Jacques was furious and went to go find Candy's diary. He finds it, and right there on the paper is everything in all the lurid details. This was the same afternoon that the police came to the mansion and had to forcibly remove Melvin from the premises. He was also immediately terminated from his bank job. It was also the same time that Jacques got himself a new apartment in Florida.
So I guess he...
So he's having sex. That'd be like you having sex with Tom. Like what?
No.
That's your sister's kid.
No. It's gross.
Okay.
It's disgusting. I ain't gonna lie.
Police now put Melvin at the top of their suspect list. Police start the questions, and they're not disappointed. Melvin Powers bought a ticket from Houston to Miami in which he paid cash. This was on the afternoon of the late-night murder of Jacques. He then caught a flight back to Houston only about 7 hours after Jacques was killed. The evidence is becoming overwhelming.
Jesus.
Police then arrest Melvin Powers for the murder of Jacques Mossler. They pull the arm print that they had recovered at the scene of the murder, and as suspected, it belonged to Melvin Powers. But authorities wonder, could this good-looking fella use his oral skills to get out of the murder rap, or was his mouth going to tell them even more? Now that is a good sentence. Did you like it? I love that sentence. That was good. At the same time Melvin was being booked, Candy had been stricken with those unbearable migraines once again.
Oh, yeah.
She packed her bags and checked out of Florida and into the Mayo Clinic indefinitely.
The Mayo Clinic?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought you said the Mayo Clinic at first.
No, Mayo. Investigators are now figuring that this was not Melvin's idea all on his own.
Mm-hmm.
After all, Candy and Jacques had a prenuptial agreement, and if they divorced, she would only walk away with $200,000.
Wow, I wonder what it's the equivalent today.
Which doesn't even make a dent in the wallet of Jacques. Remember, at this time, he was worth $33 million.
Exactly.
If Jacques died, on the other hand, she would get it all. For a while, she had it all. All the money she wanted from Jacques, all the sex from Melvin. But then being forced to choose one or the other, well, that just could not happen in her eyes.
No, you got to have it all.
You got to have it all. Police had the print to tie Melvin to the murder, but they had nothing that would tie Candy to the murder. As police continued to figure out how to get her, they decided something needed to be fixed. So they called in none other than the fix-it man, Roscoe Brown. Roscoe sat down with police and tells them just what they needed to hear. He states, on the day that Jacques was murdered, he was instructed to clean and detail that white Chevy for Candy. He handed her the keys, and off she drove from the apartment. Roscoe knew at this point it was not looking good for Candy because Candy had stated that she hadn't seen the car in days before the murder, not hours, as Brown is telling the authorities. Which now leads to more questions. Police travel back to Jackson Memorial Hospital. That's the very same hospital that Candy had checked herself into during the time that Jacques was murdered. The nurse tells police that Candy's room received 3 phone calls during her short stay there. All 3 were the same man's voice, with the final call being around 4:30 a.m. Was this last phone call to alert Candy that the deed was done and that she was now free to go home?
I think so.
I'm going to say probably so. Soon, one of the largest, most scandalous trials was set to begin, and the public was enthralled. After all, it had the 3 things that make a hit Lifetime movie: sex, money, and murder. All the well-known media outlets fly to Miami to be in the middle of the action. The trial began in 1966, and the first witness dropped a bomb. or shall we say a hit.
Uh-oh.
His name was Billy Eisler, and he stated that Candy and Melvin approached him and wanted to offer him $10,000 in exchange for a hit on Jacques' life. Eisler said they delivered the $7,000, but failed on the last 3, so he didn't do it. Wouldn't do it. But it didn't end there. The witness stand became a carousel of people who said that they, too, were offered money to kill Jacques Mossler.
Well, nothing like trying to keep it under wraps, huh?
It was clear the couple did, in fact, want Jacques dead, so now the prosecution would dictate exactly how it was accomplished. The prosecution states that the day prior to Jacques being murdered, Melvin Powers flew into Miami, where Candy picked him up from the airport in that white Chevy. At around 1 a.m., Candy and her children depart for the hospital with her killer headache. During her absence, Melvin pulls into the complex around 15 minutes later. Powers gets into the apartment but makes some noise, waking the sleeping Jacques. Because Jacques is walking around only in a white nightshirt, he covers himself with a blanket. He sees Melvin Powers standing there with the glass swan vase in his hand and shouts, "No, don't do it." The dog on the balcony sees the commotion and begins barking. Powers then stabbed Jacques 39 times. Before leaving, Powers goes to wash his hands in the kitchen, and there he leaves an arm print on the countertop. He then leaves the apartment, goes to the Chevy, and drives away. He pulls over and makes a phone call to the hospital to tell Candy it was all over. While the press were there to see the defendants, it was defense attorney Percy Foreman who would be putting on the show. Foreman commanded the court as he used his over-the-top antics to mesmerize the jury. He opened his arguments by commending the prosecution for coming to trial with such little to no evidence and noted how brave they were to do it with just that. And then the jury laughed. This goes back to the thing where if somebody of authority tells you something,
Right, you just go
the
ahead
public
and...
tends to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Especially back then.
They weren't as jaded as we are. Foreman stated that the hair in Jacques' hand did not belong to either Candy or Melvin, but to someone else. It was that someone else responsible for the death of Jacques. Or perhaps it was 39 different people, because that would not even come close to the amount of people who wanted Jacques dead. He was very ruthless. He made a lot of enemies in his life, being the ruthless businessman. That's what Foreman stated.
Yeah.
Okay. Foreman wanted to paint Jacques as a bad, evil person, and so he began. He listed some of the things that Jacques did in his life to gain his fortune and all the enemies he had made along the way. He shouted religious rhetoric, and his closing argument went on for over 5 hours. Can you believe that? You see, all Foreman's job was, in this case, was not to prove innocence, but to provide the opportunity that just a little bit of doubt could creep in and change all those jurors' minds. As the verdict came in, defendants were asked to stand. The courtroom was so still, as all were waiting to hear what would be this loving family's fate.
They're very loving.
They love a lot. In the state of Florida versus Melvin Lane Powers and Candace Mossler, we, the jury at the Miami-Dade County, Florida courthouse, find the defendants, Melvin Lane Powers and Candace Mossler, not guilty in the death of Jacques Mossler. The couple embrace. They're so happy. They're thrilled. The courtroom gasp and also claps.
Really?
They make their way out of the courthouse, a free, loving couple.
Family.
Hop in a sports car. The couple moved back into the Houston mansion. But, things aren't quite the same after all that. They split up before the year is even up. Melvin Powers
I wonder why.
went on to become a real estate developer in Houston. He died in 2010. Candy Mossler, who, as you remember earlier on, was a businesswoman before meeting Jacques,
Yeah, she was a model.
took over his business ventures
Mm-hmm.
and ended up tripling the Mossler fortune.
You're kidding.
Is that crazy or what?
Well, look what she planned.
1976, she suffered an overdose of migraine medicine and died.
Really? What kind of medicine would it be?
I don't know, but I guess if you took a lot of any kind of medicine, it'd kill you.
Maybe painkillers. I bet you
Probably
that was,
painkiller, yeah.
she overdosed on codeine or something like that. That was awesome.
That's crazy, right?
I'm nuts.
How can you have relations with your sibling's kid?
No.
Ew.
No, that's disgusting.
And her to make those four small little things you got to do.
Yeah.
To be circumcised at age 22? Okay. No.
No, I mean, if some guy
And my
would come
favorite,
up...
tonsils out in case you snore.
Yeah.
Because,
Well,
when we're sleeping together, I can't have you snoring.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants you to have plastic surgery just to sleep with you,
Not to
that's a
mention, like, around
problem.
town, he's supposed to be her nephew, so...
No, he's not supposed to. He is.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, they're not supposed to be,
Oh, I know.
You know?
I know, that's sick. But hell of a businesswoman.
I
That was
guess so.
interesting. I never heard
isn't
that
that
one.
funny? Okay, and the good part is you tripled the fortune. The bad
Mhm.
part is you killed her dad.
The good part is...
We're really, really rich.
Yeah.
Really, really rich.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. I never heard that one. Cool story, bro.
So everybody tell it at parties. I hope
Your
you
door-
liked my stupendous writing because I tried to
Pump up the volume, pump up the volume,
Boom,
pump up the
boom,
volume.
boom.
Dance, dance.
I, for one, would like to give a giant shout out to Nico,
Mm-hmm.
who really pulled it together, knocked it out of the park when somebody, not going to name names, decided to write a super duper long, very detailed case, struggled
Damn it, Reggie.
putting it all together because there were so many details and so many names. I mean, there was a ton of people in it. And then when you have a guy that has 20 million alias names, yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you, Nico. That's all.
Nico's awesome.
And if you need any editing for podcast or whatever, or music, he is
Your man. Do it. He's your
he's
man.
your man. He's my man.
He's your man. He's our man.
Woo! WeTalkOfDreams.com. That's his company's name, and he is awesome. And he was so accommodating with us and for us and all that stuff. So anyway, that's all I got, Jen. That's all I got.
Yep. All right. I want to remind everybody that we did open a Patreon page. You can go there if you want to. You don't
We will
have
be working
to.
on
And we're
getting
working on...
you your goodies and extras and all that stuff. I don't
Mhm.
know if I talked about this yet in this episode. I did. But I only have 4 days of school left.
Mhm.
And then I will be off for 3 glorious months.
Yep, that's true.
So it'll all be coming.
So we're
Lots
going
and
to
lots
get
of
stuff
extras.
on Patreon right now. Like I said, you don't have to do it. It's all good. You can find us on Facebook,
Twitter.
Twitter. We have our own webpage, ourtruecrimepodcast.com. If you've left us a review, we thank you very, very much. There's a few, and I have to admit, I'm not prepared. I don't know your names, but I'll get you next episode. You're awesome. We love you. If you haven't left a review yet, please do.
Please.
I know. We love it. It's a good ego boost for us if you leave us a 5-star. If you...
low podcast esteem, it's nice.
It is. If you leave us a 1-star review, you will be ridiculed on air. It's just kind
maybe,
of how
maybe
we are.
not. And if
most
you want to
likely.
try to see if it's a maybe or maybe not, just
Come
do
at
it.
us, bro. Come at us.
Come at me, bro.
All right.
All right, buddy. That's it. That's all I got. Remember, lock your doors.
Keep passing by those open windows.
Bye-bye.
Love you.
Jacques.
Jean-Luc?
Jacques
Cousteau.
Mossler.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to sleep.
No, don't do that. Actually, you could. I'll just hitch it every once in a while. Okay, sorry. Candace
Mm-hmm.
or Candy to those who were close to her.
Candy. Sorry.
Another neighbor named Irene lived below Mossler, and she said she was. Would you stop it?
I'm not singing.
You are, though. Stop.
I'm surprised you're not falling apart yet.
I am. My knees hurt today.
There you go. That's the first. That is the first sign you're getting old.
My knees. I know.
How you doing, Camille? Oh, my knees.
Terrible.
Oh,
Okay.
my knees.
Text me. The name was Vincent Caltaraccioni. No,
Wow.
that is terrible. Hold on.
Caltaraccioni. What would you like to eat? I'd want some
Caltaccioni. Okay. And while they had no one to corroborate that, sorry.
Corroborating. I love to
Oh my
corroborate.
gosh, these names. Okay. Proved that was the case.
Sorry.
Stop
I love it when we do that, though. It just makes me laugh.
It's terrible.
It's hard. It's hard.
Corroborate.
Words are hard.
Corroborate. That's I think
Corroborate.
I'm looking at that same problem we have. I look at the word and
And
it
it doesn't
doesn't
look
go
right.
with it.
Mhm.
Roscoe Brown.
Grandpa's automobile.
I'm gonna punch you.
16 Candles. I love that movie. Can I get a witness?
But it didn't end there. Not guilty
Not
in the
guilty?
death of Jacques Mossler.
No way.
It kind of worked. It fit right there. That's kind of funny.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out what I wrote here. Okay, that's